My name is Michael Smith, and if you told me a year ago that I'd be afraid to sleep in my own house, I'd have laughed. Back then, everything felt normal: quiet mornings, packed lunches, Ethan's laughter echoing through the hallway, and Clara's soft humming drifting from the kitchen. We lived in Bellevue, Washington, in a two-story house with cedar shingles and a porch swing Clara had insisted on buying. From the outside, we looked like any other happy family on our street. I used to believe that happiness was something you could measure: steady job, good neighborhood, a family that loved you. I worked as an insurance adjuster for a firm in Seattle, the kind of job that sounded boring but paid the bills. Clara taught music at the local elementary school, and Ethan was our everything, but sometimes, I think the silence after sunset was trying to warn me. It started with the small things. Ethan began having trouble sleeping, crying out at odd hours. Clara always got to him first, moving so quickly that I barely opened my eyes before she was already at his door. "Go back to sleep, Mike," she'd whisper, her voice calm, motherly. "He just needs his mom." At first, I didn't question it. That's what good fathers do, right? They trust. But the nights dragged on, and Ethan's cries turned into something else: soft murmurs, conversations in the dark. I'd wake up around 2 a.m. to hear Clara's footsteps padding down the hallway, followed by the faint creak of Ethan's door. Sometimes I'd hear her talking to him, but I could never make out the words. It wasn't the tone of comfort, it was lower, sharper. One night, I sat up, meaning to check on them, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the unease crawling up my spine, or maybe it was how still the house felt, as if it were holding its breath, and for the first time, a quiet, guilty thought crossed my mind: what if my wife wasn't telling me everything? The uneasy feeling didn't leave me after that night. In fact, it grew heavier, like a weight pressing on my chest every time Clara left the room with Ethan. I tried to tell myself I was overthinking, maybe I was just being a paranoid husband. But the silence after she returned to bed was different. It was colder somehow, like the house had shifted around me. I began noticing little things I had never paid attention to before. Clara's phone always seemed to light up when I wasn't around, though she claimed she was just checking her messages from work. Ethan sometimes whispered words in his sleep that didn't sound like anything I recognized, fragments of sentences that made no sense and yet felt urgent. I chalked it up to the imagination of a 6-year-old. But the feeling in my gut told me otherwise. One Friday night, I stayed awake, pretending to sleep. I laid perfectly still, staring at the ceiling as Clara's footsteps moved down the hallway. I could hear the soft click of Ethan's bedroom door opening. I strained to listen. What I heard made my heart skip. Her voice was low, deliberate, and there was another voice with it, a whisper. Not Ethan's usual sleepy murmur, but something deeper, a tone I didn't recognize. I wanted to get up, confront them, demand answers. But I froze, feeling a mix of fear and dread I couldn't name. By the time she returned to our bedroom, I was shaking. "Everything okay?" she asked, smiling like nothing had happened. I nodded, my throat dry, pretending I had been asleep the whole time. That weekend, I tried to push it from my mind, focusing on work and small errands. But the unease followed me everywhere. Every glance from Clara felt heavier. Every laugh from Ethan sounded slightly off. And at night, when I lay in bed alone, I could still hear the faint echoes of that unknown voice from down the hallway. Something was happening in my house. Something I didn't understand yet, and I realized, maybe I didn't want to understand, because if I did, I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to go back to believing in the life I had thought was perfect. I couldn't shake the thought of that night. The low whispering, the unfamiliar voice, it haunted me. But I kept telling myself I needed proof, something concrete, before accusing Clara or letting my imagination run wild. That's when the idea came to me: a camera. A small, discreet one I could hide in Ethan's room. A nightlight camera. I felt a twinge of guilt even as I ordered it online. It felt invasive, like I was breaking the trust of the two people I loved most. But every instinct in my body told me I had to know the truth. When it arrived, I installed it late at night, making sure Ethan and Clara were asleep. I watched from our bedroom doorway, pretending to be asleep, heart hammering every time a shadow moved across the hallway. The first 2 nights showed nothing unusual, Clara comforting Ethan, reading him soft bedtime stories, humming lullabies. I almost felt relief, thinking maybe I had been paranoid. But I didn't celebrate. I knew better than to trust the surface of things when something felt off so deeply. Then came the third night. I laid in bed, holding my breath, listening. Around 2:47 a.m., Clara's footsteps padded down the hallway. She entered Ethan's room, and my stomach tightened. I strained to see through the small camera lens. She moved unusually slowly, deliberately. Ethan stirred in his sleep, murmuring something I couldn't make out. Then Clara bent over him, holding something I couldn't immediately identify. A small, black box, almost hidden in her hand. For a moment, I thought she was just showing him a toy, but the way Ethan flinched made me pause. And then she glanced toward the camera. Not by accident. She stared straight at it, as though she knew I was watching. I froze. My heart pounded, a mixture of fear and disbelief washing over me. Was she aware I had installed the camera? Or was this something else entirely? That night, I realized something terrifying. Whatever Clara was doing, it wasn't just about Ethan. It wasn't just bedtime. And the truth I was about to uncover might change everything I thought I knew about my family. The next morning, I couldn't eat. Coffee burned my throat, and every sound in the house made me jump. Clara moved around the kitchen as if nothing had happened, pouring cereal for Ethan, humming softly, smiling at me with that same calm expression. But I could feel it. That knowing look from the night before lingered. Even though I hadn't confronted her yet, I tried to act normal, but I couldn't shake the images from the footage. The black box. Ethan flinching. Clara staring into the camera like she was aware of it. My mind raced, asking questions I didn't want to voice. Why had she looked at the camera? Why had Ethan reacted like that? I decided to watch the footage again, frame by frame. Every movement, every pause, every whispered word. And then I saw it, just for a second. Something inside the black box glinted under the soft glow of the nightlight. A small, folded piece of paper, like a note. I couldn't make out what it said, but it was enough to make my stomach drop. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just a bedtime note or a drawing. But deep down, I knew better. Something about the way Clara handled it, the secrecy, the glances, the careful movements, felt deliberate. Too deliberate. I spent the day pretending to go about my normal life, but the curiosity and unease gnawed at me. By evening, I knew I had to confront it somehow, but I wasn't ready to ask Clara directly. Not yet. Instead, I made a plan. I would stay awake again that night, just like before. Pretend to sleep. Watch. See what she did, and finally understand what was hidden in that box. But as I lay in bed, listening to the quiet hum of the house, I couldn't shake one thought. If Clara knew I was watching, what would happen next? And worse. What if the truth wasn't just about a note, or a black box, or Ethan? I didn't know it then, but that night would change everything I thought I knew about my family. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, pretending to sleep. Every muscle in my body was tense. Every creak in the house made my heart skip a beat. I didn't know what I expected to see, maybe nothing. Maybe confirmation that I had been imagining things. But I needed answers. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard Clara's soft footsteps in the hallway. The door to Ethan's room creaked open, and I held my breath. Through the camera, I watched as she moved slowly to the side of Ethan's bed. She knelt, her hands resting lightly on his sheets. For several seconds, she just sat there, unmoving, almost listening. Then she reached under the bed and pulled out the black box. This time, I could see it clearly. It wasn't a toy, not a book. It was a small wooden box, polished and worn at the edges, as if it had been handled many times before. And inside, I saw the glint of something metallic, partially hidden by folded paper. Clara whispered something I couldn't hear, but Ethan's reaction made my stomach twist. He flinched, pulled back slightly, and whispered, "No, please." She leaned closer, placing a finger over his lips, and then she looked directly at the camera again, not by accident. Not like the night before. This was deliberate. My mind raced. Why was she hiding something from me? Why the secrecy? Why the glances at the camera as if she knew it was there? I tried to remind myself that this was just a mother comforting her child, but the way Ethan reacted, the way Clara moved, and that black box. It screamed that something was very, very wrong. I stayed awake for hours afterward, staring at the ceiling, replaying the footage in my head. By the time dawn came, I knew one thing: I couldn't ignore this anymore. I needed to know what was in that box. I needed to know why Clara was keeping secrets from me, and I realized, with a pit forming in my stomach, that once I found out, nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't sleep that morning. I kept replaying the footage in my mind, the way Clara had moved, the way Ethan had flinched, and that deliberate glance at the camera. That black box had become an obsession. I didn't know why, but I had to see it for myself. When Clara left for work that afternoon, I waited until I was certain Ethan was in the living room playing with his toys before slipping quietly into his room. The black box was gone. My stomach sank. Had she noticed it missing? Was she hiding it somewhere else? I searched every nook and cranny, lifting Ethan's blankets and peeking under the bed. And then I found it, tucked behind a stack of children's books, just out of sight. My hands shook as I picked it up. It felt heavier than I expected, like it carried more than just paper or trinkets. I sat on the floor, staring at it for what felt like an eternity. The house was quiet, eerily so, and I kept expecting someone to come in, to catch me in the act. But no one came. I slowly opened the box. Inside were a few folded papers and a small photograph, edges worn and yellowed with age. I hesitated, feeling a twinge of guilt and fear. The photograph showed Clara, smiling, holding a small baby I didn't recognize. The baby wasn't Ethan, but something about the expression on Clara's face made my chest tighten. She looked different. Older. Worried. Secretive. I unfolded one of the papers and scanned it. It wasn't addressed to me, but the handwriting was unmistakable, Clara's. The words were cautious, almost whispered, "He will never know. Not yet. Keep him safe." A chill ran down my spine. Who was she writing about? And why was I being kept in the dark? In that moment, I realized the life I thought I knew, the family I thought I understood, was built on secrets, and the more I uncovered, the more I feared that those secrets weren't just about me or Ethan. They were about something far larger, far darker, and far more personal than I could imagine. I had to know the truth, even if it destroyed everything. That night, sleep felt impossible. Every creak of the house made my heart jump. I kept glancing at the clock, counting down the hours until Clara and Ethan would be in bed, until I could pretend to sleep again and watch. I couldn't get the photograph or the note out of my head. Who was the baby? Why was Clara writing about keeping someone safe? My mind raced with possibilities, and none of them made sense. But deep down, I knew one thing: Clara was hiding something from me. As I lay in bed, I heard her footsteps moving down the hallway. I held my breath, pretending to sleep, feeling every nerve in my body on edge. The door to Ethan's room opened quietly, and I caught a glimpse of her silhouette moving across the dim glow of the nightlight. Then I heard it, a whisper, soft and deliberate, "Shh, it has to stay this way." Ethan responded, murmuring something I didn't understand. But Clara's voice was calm, commanding even, like she was delivering instructions. My stomach twisted. The words sounded intimate, secretive, like she was sharing something I wasn't meant to hear. I felt a sudden, sharp pang of betrayal. Was she keeping secrets from me because she didn't trust me? Or because she was protecting someone else? She bent down, adjusting something in the black box, and glanced toward the camera again. The recognition in her eyes sent a shiver down my spine. It wasn't fear, it was calculated, almost deliberate. I wanted to get up and confront her, but a part of me froze, paralyzed by the growing realization that I might not like the answers. When she finally returned to our bedroom, she smiled at me and asked, "Everything okay?" Her voice was soft, almost normal. But I could feel the weight of what I had seen pressing down on me. I nodded, lying there, pretending to sleep. But inside, I was unraveling. The trust one had in Clara was beginning to crack. And with each passing night, that crack grew wider. Deeper. I didn't know it then, but this was only the beginning. The truth she was hiding, and the betrayal I was starting to sense, would soon shatter everything I believed about my family, my son, and even myself. The following week was unbearable. Every glance from Clara felt loaded with meaning, every word she spoke seemed carefully measured. I tried to act normal, but inside, I was unraveling. The black box, the photograph, and the whispered words haunted me constantly. I started paying closer attention to Ethan, too. He was quieter than usual, more thoughtful, almost like he was carrying a secret he didn't know how to explain. At dinner, he barely touched his food, staring into space. When I asked him what was wrong, he said nothing, just gave me a small, uneasy smile. I knew better than to ignore it. That night, I decided to stay awake longer. I lay in bed, pretending to sleep, waiting for Clara to move down the hallway. When she did, I held my breath and watched the camera's live feed. She entered Ethan's room and sat on the edge of his bed. For a few moments, she just watched him sleep, her hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Then she reached under the bed, pulling out the black box once again. I couldn't see exactly what she was doing, but I noticed her hands trembling slightly this time. A small piece of paper slipped from the box, landing softly on the carpet. I leaned closer, straining to see. Her whisper came again, "Promise me you'll keep it safe. No matter what." Ethan murmured something I didn't understand, but his voice sounded anxious. Then she looked toward the camera again, eyes scanning the room as if she sensed someone was watching. And in that moment, I felt it, a deep, chilling certainty. She wasn't just hiding things from me, she was hiding something from someone else too, and I couldn't shake the thought that I might be too late to stop it. I stayed awake for hours after she returned, staring at the ceiling. The house felt smaller somehow, suffocating. Every shadow seemed to move, every creak amplified. I realized something then, something terrifying. The secrets in my home weren't just about Clara or Ethan, they were bigger than I could imagine. And when I finally learned the truth, it wouldn't just shake me, it could destroy everything I thought I knew about my life. That week, the unease in our home only grew. It wasn't just the whispers, the black box, or Ethan's strange behavior. It was something else, something I couldn't see, but could feel. The kind of tension that made the air thick and every shadow in the hallway feel alive. I started noticing small, strange details. Clara's phone would light up late at night, but she never answered it in front of me. She would step outside for a moment, sometimes whispering softly to herself. And Ethan. He began speaking in his sleep again, murmuring words that didn't make sense but sounded urgent. One night, I pretended to sleep, as I had before, watching the camera feed. Clara moved quietly into Ethan's room, the black box tucked under her arm. She knelt by his bed, placing the box carefully on the floor. I noticed her eyes flick to the door as though she expected someone. Then I saw it, a shadow outside the window, fleeting but unmistakable. I froze, heart pounding. The shape was tall, still, almost deliberate. I held my breath as it vanished from view, and Clara's eyes followed it, narrowing. She whispered something to Ethan in a low voice, and he nodded slightly, still half asleep. The sight of that shadow changed everything. It wasn't just about the black box or the secrets in our home anymore. There was someone else involved, someone I didn't know. By morning, I couldn't shake the feeling that my family was part of something much larger than me. Every glance at Clara felt like a puzzle I couldn't solve. Every whisper from Ethan seemed like a warning I didn't understand yet. I wanted to confront her, to demand answers. But something held me back, a mixture of fear, doubt, and a growing sense that the truth might be more than I could handle, and yet, I knew I couldn't ignore it, because the shadows outside the door weren't just illusions. They were warnings. And I had a sinking feeling that whatever, or whoever, was watching, had been doing so long before I even suspected it. I didn't know it then, but that night was the first step toward uncovering a truth that would shatter everything I believed about my life, my family, and the people I trusted most. By the time Friday night rolled around, I couldn't take it anymore. The shadows outside the window. The whispered words from Ethan, Clara's secretive movements, it all pressed down on me like a storm cloud refusing to pass. I decided I had to confront the black box directly, no more waiting, no more pretending. Clara had gone out for a parent-teacher meeting at Ethan's school in Bellevue Elementary, and I was alone with the house. My heart pounded as I stepped quietly into Ethan's room. The black box sat on the floor exactly where I had last seen it. I reached down, hesitated, then lifted it onto my lap. Opening it, I found a small stack of papers and another photograph. The photo froze me in place. Clara was holding a baby I didn't recognize, a child that couldn't have been Ethan. But the way she held him, the gentle curve of her arms, the careful positioning of her hands, was intimate, almost reverent. My chest tightened. I unfolded one of the papers. Clara's handwriting curled across the page, careful, measured. He will not be ready for the truth yet. Protect him. Protect us all. My mind raced. Protect who? Who was he? And why was I being kept in the dark? I felt a sudden pang of betrayal. I had trusted her, loved her, thought I knew her. But this secrecy was different. It wasn't just about me being left out. It was deliberate. Intentional. Something she was hiding from me, and I had no idea how far it went, and then I noticed a small note tucked under the papers, written in a different hand. A man's handwriting, neat, almost formal. Tonight, he'll know. Be ready. I froze, every muscle in my body rigid. A man's handwriting? Who was it? And what did he mean by he'll know? Suddenly, the house felt smaller, suffocating. I realized I wasn't just a husband or a father anymore. I was part of something I didn't understand, something that involved Clara, Ethan, and this unknown man. By the time I sat back against the wall, my hands shaking, I knew one thing with terrifying certainty: whatever was happening in my home, it wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a betrayal, and I didn't know if I was ready for the truth. After discovering the note and the handwriting that wasn't Clara's, I couldn't focus on anything else. I walked through the house, touching nothing, seeing everything differently. Every photograph on the walls, every memento of our perfect life, suddenly felt like a mask hiding something I wasn't supposed to see. That night, I pretended to sleep again, though my mind refused to rest. I could hear Clara moving around the house, and I noticed her pace was different, slower, more deliberate, as if she were avoiding something or someone. Every time she glanced toward Ethan's room, there was tension in her shoulders, a caution in her movements. I wanted to ask questions. I wanted to demand answers. But fear held me back, not fear of her, but fear of what I might uncover. The black box, the photograph, the mysterious note, they were more than secrets. They were warnings, and I couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was involved. Later, when Clara came back to bed, she asked softly, "Mike, you're awake, aren't you?" I froze, pretending to stir in sleep. She hesitated, then continued, "I worry about Ethan. Sometimes he doesn't sleep well. He needs care." Her words felt loaded. Too careful. Too controlled. I realized then that Clara had been managing more than just bedtime routines. She had been managing secrets. And somewhere, hidden in the darkness, someone else had influence over what she could reveal. The thought made my chest tighten. I felt betrayed, not just by her silence, but by the invisible web of control around my family. I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I had to find out who was behind it, what the notes meant, and why Clara had been hiding the truth from me all along. And the more I thought about it, the more I understood. the moment I uncovered the first piece of truth, the whole house, the life I had trusted, would feel like a lie, and that thought was more terrifying than anything I had seen in the black box. I couldn't take it anymore. Pretending to sleep, watching from the shadows, and wondering what Clara was hiding wasn't enough. I had to do something, anything, to understand what was happening in my own home. That evening, after Clara left for another meeting at school, I stayed in the living room, scanning the house. My eyes kept returning to Ethan's room, to the black box tucked under his bed. The notes, the photograph, the other handwriting, it all seemed like pieces of a puzzle I didn't yet understand. I carefully lifted the black box and examined it. Nothing seemed out of place, yet everything felt significant. I flipped through the papers again, noting the subtle differences in Clara's handwriting compared to the man's note. There were mentions of keeping him safe and he'll know soon, but no real context. Whoever this man was, he had influence over Clara, and maybe over Ethan. 2. I realized then that I had to look beyond the box. I started checking the house for other signs, drawers, cabinets, anything Clara might have hidden. That's when I noticed a small envelope tucked behind a row of books on the shelf in the study. It wasn't addressed to me. The handwriting was neat and unfamiliar, the same as the previous note. Inside was a single photograph and a short message: trust no one. Not even him. My stomach dropped. Who did him mean? Was it me? Someone else? The words made me question everything I thought I knew about my family. I sat on the floor, holding the photograph in my hands. It showed Clara standing next to a man I didn't recognize. Both smiling, a younger Ethan in her arms. But the way Clara looked at him. There was something in her eyes I had never seen before. Something secretive, careful, protective, and almost guilty. I realized that the web of secrets extended far beyond the black box or the notes. Someone else was involved, someone controlling pieces of my family's life. And the longer I waited, the closer I came to discovering a truth that could destroy everything. I didn't know it yet, but the moment I crossed that invisible line, nothing would ever be the same. Over the next few nights, Ethan's behavior began to change in ways I couldn't ignore. He was quieter, more withdrawn, and sometimes he would stare at the corner of his room for minutes at a time, murmuring words I couldn't understand. At first, I thought it was just a phase or his imagination running wild. But then I remembered the whispers I had heard before, both from him and Clara. One night, I pretended to sleep as usual. Clara entered the room around 2:45 a.m., carrying the black box. She whispered something I couldn't hear, and Ethan responded immediately, his voice low and anxious. I caught his words, just fragments, but they were enough to make my blood run cold. She'll know. He said. I froze. Who would know? I wondered. My mind raced with possibilities, each one more terrifying than the last. Clara's calm voice answered him, soft but urgent, not yet. It's not time. Then she leaned toward the black box and took something out, a small folded note, which she handed to Ethan. He clutched it to his chest, eyes wide, and for a moment, he looked at me. There was recognition in his gaze, almost as if he knew I was there. But he didn't say anything. I wanted to step forward, to grab the note, to demand answers. But I froze, paralyzed by a mix of fear and confusion. The moment felt sacred, secretive, and dangerous all at once. When Clara finally left, Ethan climbed into bed silently. I watched him for a long time, heart pounding, trying to piece together what had just happened. I realized then that whatever was in that black box, or whatever message Clara had given him, was more than a simple secret. It was a connection to someone or something beyond me, and Ethan was a part of it. That night, I understood something chilling. The betrayal wasn't just Clara's. It involved my son. And the truth, whatever it was, had been carefully hidden from me all along. I didn't know it yet, but the first major revelation was closer than I could imagine, and when it came, it would change everything I thought I knew about my family. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about Ethan's behavior the night before. His whispered words, the note, the way he had looked at me, it all pressed down on my mind like a storm cloud I couldn't shake. I realized I needed to know more about Clara's past, about who she had been before me, and what secrets she might be carrying. I started quietly looking through old photographs and mementos I had never paid much attention to. Her albums from high school and college revealed little: smiling faces at parties, music recitals, trips to Seattle landmarks, but hidden among them was a folded piece of paper I had never noticed. It was a letter, aged and slightly crumpled, addressed to someone named Daniel Harper. I didn't know the name, but it felt familiar in some way I couldn't place. The handwriting was Clara's. The words were cautious, deliberate. "I don't know how long I can hide this from him. He deserves to know eventually, but not yet. Protect Ethan, protect us both." My stomach tightened. Who was Daniel Harper? And why was Clara writing to him about Ethan? I spent the rest of the day trying to connect the dots. I called a few mutual friends and asked subtle questions about Clara's past. Most of them spoke warmly of her. But there was a hesitance, a pause before their answers, that made my chest tighten. Something had been deliberately left out of her life story. That evening, I set up the camera in Ethan's room again, knowing Clara would follow the same nightly routine. As expected, she entered, the black box tucked under her arm. She whispered something to Ethan, and he responded immediately. But this time, she paused mid-sentence, glanced toward the window, and her expression shifted, tense, wary. My story doesn't end with heartbreak. It ends with hope. With renewal. With the courage to choose himself. Maybe you're watching this and going through your own storm. Maybe you've been betrayed, lied to, or made to feel like you're not enough. I want you to hear this: you are enough. The truth might hurt, but it also sets you free. And on the other side of that pain is a version of you that's stronger, wiser, and more authentic than ever before. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, subscribe to this channel right now. Because we're just getting started. More stories of real people, real struggles, and real transformations are coming your way. Click subscribe. Hit that bell icon. And join a community that believes in truth, growth, and the unbreakable human spirit. Your story matters. Your healing matters. And I'll be here, sharing more stories that remind you, you're not alone. Until next time, stay strong, stay honest, and keep moving forward. I realized then that the past she was hiding wasn't just a story. It was active. Someone, or something, was influencing the present. And Ethan, somehow, was in the middle of it. As I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, I understood something chilling. The web of secrets surrounding my family wasn't just about a note or a photograph. It was about people, history, and choices made long before I ever came into the picture. And if I wasn't careful, the truth would find me before I was ready. That night, sleep was impossible. My mind kept turning over the letter I had found, the name Daniel Harper echoing in my thoughts. Who was he, and why had Clara kept him hidden from me all these years? The black box sat on the floor next to Ethan's bed. Silent yet loaded with secrets I could no longer ignore. As usual, I pretended to sleep, eyes barely open, heart hammering. Clara entered the room at exactly 2:47 a.m., carrying the box like a secret treasure. She whispered to Ethan softly, and his small voice answered with the same anxious tone I had begun to recognize. Then she reached into the box and pulled out something new, a photograph I hadn't seen before. It was Clara, holding a baby that wasn't Ethan, but the resemblance was undeniable. Standing beside her was a man, Daniel Harper. My pulse raced. This wasn't just someone from her past, he was a father figure, maybe more, connected to Ethan in ways I hadn't imagined. Clara's eyes met mine, or at least the camera's, again. There was a warning there, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't before, a betrayal deeper than secrecy. She wasn't hiding an old mistake. She was hiding a connection, a life I had never been part of, and I was only beginning to see its reach. I sat there, frozen, watching the interaction between mother, child, and the unseen past. Ethan clutched the photograph tightly, eyes wide. The way he looked at it. I realized he knew more than he should, and Clara's whispered instructions were more like a command than a lullaby. It was then that the first real truth hit me: Ethan wasn't entirely mine, not biologically, and Daniel Harper wasn't just a name from a forgotten past. He was a part of this family, of this story, and he had a claim on both of them in ways I could barely comprehend. I felt my chest tighten, a pit forming in my stomach. Betrayal wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was a reality staring me in the face. And for the first time, I understood that uncovering the full truth would demand a confrontation I might not survive, emotionally or otherwise. That night, as I lay awake after Clara had left the room, I realized one thing: my life had changed forever, and there was no turning back. The morning after that night, I felt hollow. The revelation about Daniel Harper and the photograph replayed in my mind, looping endlessly. I couldn't eat, couldn't focus, couldn't breathe. It was as if the house itself had shifted, and every familiar corner suddenly felt foreign. Clara went about her morning routine, humming softly as she packed Ethan's lunch. I watched her from the doorway, heart pounding. Every smile, every casual gesture felt like a mask hiding a world I hadn't yet seen. How could she have kept this from me? And more importantly, why? I wanted to confront her, demand answers, but fear held me back. Fear of her reaction, fear of what I might learn, fear of what it might do to Ethan. I realized that whatever Daniel Harper represented, whatever connection he had with Clara and Ethan, it wasn't simple. There was a history, a past intertwined with their lives that I couldn't untangle overnight. All day, I replayed the footage from the previous nights. Each whisper, each movement, each glance toward the camera took on new meaning. Clara's careful instructions, Ethan's anxious compliance, it all pointed to a reality I wasn't ready to face. And yet, I knew I had to. By evening, I was exhausted, trapped between the desire to protect my family and the need to uncover the truth. I thought about the note that said, "Trust no one." Not even him. Could it really mean me? Was I being kept out of the loop for my own safety, or was it something more sinister? I decided to wait one more night. One more night to watch, to listen, to understand before stepping into the unknown. Pretending to sleep. I lay in bed, heart racing, mind spinning. Clara's footsteps soon echoed down the hallway, and I felt that familiar chill crawling up my spine. Whatever happened tonight, I realized, would push me closer to the truth, or destroy everything I had thought I knew about my family. And the realization left me with a single, terrifying thought: some betrayals aren't obvious. Some truths aren't meant to be discovered easily. And sometimes, the moment you uncover them, life as you know it ceases to exist. That night, I made a decision. I couldn't stay passive anymore. Pretending to sleep and watching from a distance had given me pieces of the puzzle, but not the full picture. I needed clarity. I needed answers. And, for the first time, I was willing to risk the fallout. As usual, I lay in bed, feigning sleep, while Clara moved down the hallway. The familiar sound of her steps reached my ears, steady and deliberate. She entered Ethan's room with the black box tucked under her arm. Ethan murmured something in response, his voice tight and anxious, but Clara's calm tone carried authority. This time, I didn't wait. I quietly slipped out of bed, careful not to make a sound, and approached Ethan's door. Peeking through the slightly ajar frame, I saw Clara kneeling by the bed. Her hands hovered over the box, but then she glanced toward the camera, the same deliberate look she'd given before. My hands shook as I stepped inside, making the faintest noise. Clara froze, her eyes locking on mine for just a second. Ethan stirred, glancing between us, clutching the box to his chest. "Clara," I whispered, my voice unsteady, "what is all of this? Who is Daniel Harper?" She didn't respond immediately. Her lips parted, then closed again, and for a moment, the room was suffocatingly silent. Ethan shifted, holding the box tighter. Finally, she spoke, voice low, measured, almost rehearsed. "Michael. There are things about my past. About Ethan. That I haven't told you. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to protect him." I felt my chest tighten. Protect me. Protect him. I wanted to yell, to demand the truth, but the tension in the room kept me frozen. The black box, the notes, the whispers, they all pointed to one reality: I had been kept out of something much bigger than I could have imagined. Clara took a deep breath, placing the black box on the floor between us. "You're going to see things you weren't ready for," she said softly. "And once you know, there's no going back." In that moment, the weight of betrayal hit me fully. It wasn't just secrets anymore. It was an entire hidden life, and I was standing at the edge of it, about to step in, whether I wanted to or not. I realized then, with a sinking certainty, whatever truth lay inside that black box would haunt me forever. I reached for the black box, my hands trembling as I lifted the lid. Inside were the folded papers, the photograph of Clara with the baby and Daniel Harper, and a small, worn notebook. I carefully opened it, trying not to disturb anything. The first page was Clara's handwriting, dated years before I had met her. "I don't know how long I can hide this. Daniel and I made choices I cannot undo. Ethan. He must be protected. No one can know yet, not Michael, not anyone." I felt a chill run down my spine. Ethan must be connected to Daniel Harper somehow, and whatever Clara had been hiding wasn't a simple secret, it was a part of her past that had shaped the present. As I read further, the notebook detailed events I couldn't have imagined. Daniel Harper was Clara's first love, a man with influence and a presence that had lingered even after she married me. There were letters, phone numbers, references to meetings and instructions. All meant to keep Ethan safe. But safe from what, or whom, I still didn't know. A folded photograph slipped from between the pages. It showed Daniel holding a small child, Ethan unmistakably in his arms, but the expression on Daniel's face wasn't warmth, it was controlled, tense, almost secretive. Clara's note on the back read, "He must never know. Not yet. Protect him at all costs." I sank to the floor, holding the photograph, heart hammering. The betrayal was no longer just a feeling, it was real. Clara had kept an entire history from me, a connection to a man I didn't know, influencing Ethan's life and my own, and then I realized something worse. Someone had been guiding Clara's actions all along. The whispers, the glances at the camera, the careful handling of the black box, it wasn't just secrecy. It was obedience. I didn't yet understand the full story. I didn't know the scope of Daniel Harper's influence or the danger surrounding my family. But one thing was certain, the life I thought I knew, the family I thought I understood, was built on secrets, manipulation, and betrayal, and when I finally learned the rest, there would be no going back. The days after I uncovered the contents of the black box were a blur. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't focus on anything besides the weight of the truth. Clara moved through the house as if nothing had changed, but I could see the tension in her eyes. She knew I had seen the black box. She knew I understood some of the secret. I tried to confront her again, gently this time. "Clara. Why didn't you tell me about Daniel? About Ethan?" My voice shook, a mix of anger and fear. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked down at Ethan, who sat silently beside her. Then she said something I hadn't expected, "Michael. It's not just Daniel. It's not just the past. There are things you don't know about me. About him. About us." My stomach sank. Us? What did she mean by that? Later that night, I went back to the camera footage. I needed answers. I watched closely, analyzing every movement, every whisper, every glance. And then I saw it, a second layer of secrecy I hadn't noticed before. Ethan, the child I thought I knew, was following instructions I hadn't realized. There was a pattern in his actions, subtle but deliberate. Clara wasn't only hiding her past from me. She was controlling a connection between Ethan and Daniel Harper, something so hidden and precise that it had been occurring under my nose all along. The betrayal hit me like a punch to the chest. Not only had Clara kept a hidden past from me, but she had also been shaping my son's life in ways I had no idea about. I realized then that my role in their lives, the fatherhood I had taken for granted, was not as complete as I thought. I had been a witness, not a participant, to a story that had begun long before I came into it. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring into the darkness. The weight of their secrets pressed down on me. I felt helpless, confused, and betrayed, not just by Clara, but by the entire life I had believed in. And in the silence of the house, I understood something chilling. Some betrayals aren't just about lies. They're about control, manipulation, and the subtle shaping of a life you thought was yours. I didn't know it yet, but the final revelation, the truth that would haunt me, was still waiting in the shadows. The house was silent that night, but the silence wasn't comforting. It was heavy, almost tangible, pressing down on me like a reminder of everything I didn't know, and everything I might never know. Clara and Ethan were asleep, but I couldn't join them. I couldn't stop thinking about Daniel Harper, the black box, and the web of secrets that had woven itself into my family's life long before I arrived. I sat on the edge of our bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, the whispers, the glances at the camera, the photographs, the notes, Ethan's anxious murmurs. Every detail, I realized, had been a clue I had barely understood at the time. And yet, the full picture, the final truth, still eluded me. I thought about Clara, her careful words, her controlled actions, and the intensity of her devotion. She had protected Ethan, yes, but at what cost? And Daniel Harper, who was he really to my son? Protector, observer, or something more? The questions multiplied, and the answers remained just out of reach. I looked at Ethan sleeping peacefully beside me, unaware of the knowledge I now carried. My chest tightened. I wanted to shield him, to hold him close, but I also feared what the truth might do to him, to us, to everything I had taken for granted. I returned to the black box, flipping through its contents one last time. The photographs, the notes, the notebook, they all seemed to whisper the same thing. Some truths are too heavy to bear fully, some betrayals too deep to untangle completely. I put the box back under Ethan's bed, careful to leave it exactly as I had found it. Some secrets, I realized, might be meant to remain hidden, for now. As I lay back down, pretending to sleep, I felt the weight of the unknown pressing closer than ever. Shadows of the past, of choices I couldn't control, lingered in the corners of the room. And I understood, finally, that life would never be the same. The house was quiet, but the haunting remained. Somewhere in the dark, the truth waited, and I knew it would not stay hidden forever. I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, pretending to sleep. The house was silent, but the weight of what I had discovered pressed down on me like a shadow I couldn't escape. The black box, the notes, the photographs, they weren't just remnants of a hidden past. They were reminders that some truths never stay buried. And some betrayals linger long after the lies are revealed. Ethan slept beside me, unaware of the secrets swirling around him, and I felt a chill thinking about what he would discover when the time came. Clara's devotion, her careful glances, and Daniel Harper's influence all painted a picture I wasn't yet ready to fully understand. I reached for the black box one last time, touching the worn edges gently. Some secrets, I realized, might never fully be understood. But they would always remain. And the thought of what else might be hidden, waiting for me, or for Ethan, to uncover, kept me awake far longer than I wanted. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: the truth isn't always what you expect, and the people closest to you might hold the deepest secrets, and maybe that's the scariest part. I don't know what will happen next. I don't know when, or if, the full story will ever come to light. But I do know one thing: the shadows of the past don't stay hidden forever. If you've ever wondered whether the people you trust the most are really who they seem, then you know exactly how I feel. Stay with me, because the next story could reveal a truth you never saw coming, and I promise, it will haunt you. Subscribe now, and turn on the notification bell. Don't miss the next story, because some secrets are too powerful to stay hidden.